Welcome back to the Popped Podcast, where we uncover real, raw, and rarely discussed truths about pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Muery, prenatal and postpartum chiropractor, birth doula, and founder of Move Moms at Move Chiropractic Boulder. Today's episode, this bonus episode is a bonus episode. I wanted to wrap up 2025. I wanted to kind of give a more clear overview of who I am now that I feel like I have a good amount of information out there between 30 different podcasts. I just wanted to clearly state who I am, how I want to show up in the birth community, how I get this information that I share on my podcast, what drives my passion, what I've learned, what I want to continue to learn. So this is just a little bonus episode to help us all wrap up the year and hopefully get to know each other just a little bit more. So welcome back. I know it's been kind of a crazy couple months with some episodes here and there, and it hasn't been as consistent these last couple of months, but that's okay. That's what happens. I was holding a really, really high standard for myself when I started this podcast to produce and put out an episode every single week, every Monday, starting all the way back last March. And it was awesome. I was doing a really great job for a long time. And, life is just life. This is a one-woman run podcast. So I film, I write, I edit my scripts before I even sit down to talk to you guys. I film, I have to set up the filming, I film, I take down the filming, I edit the filming, I put together my cover photo for YouTube and Spotify, and I put together my show notes, and then I have to upload it all, and that takes some time, and that's okay. I also have a full-time job as a chiropractor. I work Monday through Thursday as a full-time chiropractor for all populations, but I do specialize with moms and babies on a regular basis, and then I'm also a doula. So I'm doing a lot in a little bit of time, but with a lot of passion and with a lot of heart, and so that's why you see me doing so many things. I'm sure as life continues on, I won't be doing as much forever, but this is where we're at. We get to do a lot of fun stuff when we're young, so I'm trying to utilize this time to be a chiropractor, to do my podcast, to be a doula, to help moms where I can. So thanks for being patient with these inconsistent episodes. This year should be a lot more consistent now that I'm in my temperature controlled climate. In my last 30 episodes prior to the last one that I posted, my podcast studio was inside of my garage, which was obviously in the basement of my apartment. So every time I filmed, it was to the mercy of the weather outside. Whatever was going on outside is what I was going to experience inside of the podcast studio. So on a really good temperature day, I would try to film 3 or 4 podcasts, and I would have them set out for a couple weeks, and I would just edit them as I went. And that was awesome until it was really hot for like 12 straight weeks. That was really hot filming. If you notice in a couple of my episodes, my hair is blowing because I had like 4 different fans on me just to get through the episode, but I had to have them at a low enough speed so that the mic wouldn't pick up the sound of the fans. So they're all at low settings, but I needed more fans. So it's just funny, like going through the different woes of podcasting by yourself. Anybody that's attempting to do this for the first time or the first couple times, I applaud you. It is not for the weak, but it is fun. To me, it feels extremely rewarding. I have no intention behind this podcast other than to put information that's in my brain out into the world. I really don't care how many followers there are. I really don't care how many subscribers there are. If I get likes, if I get comments, that was never the purpose of making this podcast. This was a true passion project. I love talking. If you don't know me outside of this podcast, all I do is talk. So this was just another place for me to talk and get some of my brain thoughts out into the world. So I've really enjoyed doing that. Thank you so much for listening to me all of these weeks, even in weeks when I have more notes. You might notice in some podcasts where I'm going really slow. Those are usually podcasts where I had to do way more research than I actually had already stored up in my head. And so I'm using a lot more notes and a lot more research and different resources to provide that information for that topic or whatever it is. There's other episodes where I just sit here and I look at the camera and I just talk. Those are episodes where that information is so baked into my brain and I've talked to so many people about that topic already that it's just can flow out of me. So that's why some of my episodes are different. Sometimes I'm really interested in learning about something new, and that topic just takes me a while to understand and expel back into the world. So thanks for being patient with me on those types of podcasts. This podcast was also always intended to be an interview podcast. If you notice, I don't know if you can see it in the corner, but there's a little chair to my left. There was another chair at the old podcast studio. You just never saw it. I've always had 2 chairs. I've always had the intention of doing interviews. Well, it takes a second to get to interviews, to plan an interview, to have the other mic and pod arm and a sound system that can take into sound. I now have an incredible list of interviews. We just need to set them up and book them. And ideally, in order to do some of these interviews, you guys are just going to get the ins and outs of all of this podcast. Right now, you're on a camera in the very back corner of my office. There's no more space for my camera to zoom out, but I need to get space to see this other spot, right? So I'm trying to get a new camera so that I can get not just a new camera, just upgrade the camera option so that we can have more space and get both of us in the shot. And then obviously we'll get the mic and the pod arm and the sound system that supports 2 mics. What else? I have so many cool topics coming this year. We're going to do a mini dad series where we talk about different perspectives of parenthood, pregnancy, labor, birth through the eyes of fathers, and get their perspectives both for moms and dads to listen to so that you can just get an idea of what other dads are experiencing or what they've been through. We're going to do some really cool interviews with different birth practitioners and pediatric practitioners. So practitioners that we're seeing during pregnancy, labor, and birth, and then practitioners that we're seeing immediately postpartum. So I think it's really important that we talk to these people and we understand where some philosophies come from, where new philosophies might start, where different practices may be being explored, and where maybe we're missing some pieces of information that we don't always think to ask when we go to a doctor, when we go to the hospital or the pediatrician's office. So I'm really excited for those interviews. We're also going to do some really cool, close friend, family interviews, people that I have either doulaed with and been part of their birth experience so that we can hear their birth experience and what our perspectives were in the same room. I'll have my mom come on so you can hear my birth story and our experience throughout her parenthood. So if you guys have any ideas, I have a million. I think this podcast is going to be chock full with new, unique, original ideas all of the time. But if you ever have an idea or a thought or a question that you want to elaborate on, please always send them to me, because sometimes one simple question is 45 minutes worth of information that I already have stored inside of my head. Again, the whole reason why I made this podcast. Let me go to the root cause of this podcast. So a couple years ago, I started working with pregnant moms, and I was obsessed. I've always been obsessed with moms and babies, and growing up, I actually wanted to be a pediatrician. Went to school, prepping to be in nursing school, and in my senior year, something just shifted, and I changed to chiropractic. So when I went to chiropractic school, I knew there was always an opportunity to work with moms and babies, but it wasn't specifically like, I'm going to specialize in moms and babies. I wanted to take care of people, and I'd already loved chiropractic so much. I grew up as at a chiropractor. I went every single week, starting at the age of 2. I love the chiropractor. So I was like, this is perfect. I'm supposed to be a chiropractor. Went to chiropractic school. My first week of chiropractic school, I met Dr. Travis, who is actually my boss at Move Chiropractic. He was the coolest chiropractor I'd ever met, and he was still in school. So he was my mentor, my intern for about a year until he graduated and moved to Colorado. If you didn't know, this podcast is in Colorado. I'm from Colorado. I was stoked to hear that he was moving back to Colorado. I told my mom, I know this is going to be a big move, but I really need you to trust me and go see this chiropractor. Like, please trust me. This is going to be our new home for chiropractic. So she trusted me. In the depths of COVID, she went and started this new chiropractic journey with Dr. Travis at Move. And I finished school. While I was in school, this whole time, not specializing in moms and babies, just wanting to work with everybody, but gaining as much information as I possibly could. Fast forward, I graduate, I come back to Colorado. I decide I get an offer from Dr. Travis to associate with Move. I decide, great, I'm going to work with Move. Awesome. I start working at Move. I start working with moms and babies. It's amazing. I was like, okay, this is fantastic. Now people are starting to get pregnant, like, quickly. I was like, okay, I need to get some more information quickly. So I started taking adjusting courses, prenatal labor adjusting courses, postnatal adjusting courses, newborn adjusting courses, like anything I could learn so that I could feel comfortable with my hands on moms and babies. And throughout this, I gained so much information and knowledge around labor and birth, outside of adjusting babies and moms and all the in-between stages from pregnancy to early motherhood. There are so many aspects of adjusting that are affected by the stages of pregnancy to early motherhood. So you learn a lot about all these different stages, all the different hormones, all the different structure imbalances, and all the different ways that women experience life throughout these stages and how that changes the body so that we can properly adjust them and regulate their nervous system. So throughout that, I started to gain a lot of information, so much information that when I went to the first birth that I was invited to attend, which actually happened to be Dr. Travis's wife's birth, Sarah. I talk about Sarah all the time on this podcast. She's one of my best friends. She's my inspiration, my muse for motherhood, but she was my first birth, and they had a doula. They were at a birth center. We'll share so much more about this birth experience now that we're talking about the interview. She'll come and we'll talk more about this birth experience. But at this birth experience, it was 10 out of 10, exactly what I wanted to experience. And I didn't even know what I wanted to experience. This was just what I painted as the golden standard of how birth should be handled. I thought it was incredible. It was beautiful. It was amazing. And while I was in the room, every time something would happen, I stayed quiet for the entire labor and birth. They'll tell you, they did not hear a peep from me. I was just there taking pictures. I knew everything that was going on. I felt like I knew what to say. I felt like I knew what physical movement to do, even though I wasn't doing it. I would think, oh, she really needs a hip squeeze right now. And then 2 breaths later, she'd be like, can I hip squeezes? And then her doula would do some hip squeezes. Or she would be, I don't know, talking. They would be talking and they would be asking her questions. I'd be like, she really needs XYZ. We'll come to find out after talking to her, that's what she needed was XYZ. I knew what she needed. I hadn't practiced being in the position, telling her what she needed or asking, hey, should we shift positions right now? This seems like a good time to shift positions or try some hip squeezes or whatever it is. So being at her birth without any specific doula training, I had this overwhelming feeling. I absolutely could do that. I could be a doula, no problem. And for how much I'm spending with each of these moms every single week, think about any practitioner that you see during pregnancy. Do you see them every single week? Okay, think about like a non-complicated pregnancy. You don't have any complications. You don't need to see anybody weekly because most of you don't see any weekly. But you do usually see your chiropractor weekly. So a lot of these women some of them I see starting at week 6, 5. They know the day that they took their pregnancy test, they're like, oh my gosh, hey, I'm pregnant. I need to shift to prenatal care when they come into the office. Or they come in, 10, 12 weeks, whatever it is. I'm seeing these women upwards of 34 to 36 times every single week in 10 months before they give birth. And then that last little part where the positioning of your body to push a baby out matters most, I wasn't there for it. And that was crazy to me. I was like, I could be a birth doula. Like, I have to be a birth doula. How is every chiropractor not a birth doula? You see her body every single week for 9 months. And then she goes into labor and birth by herself when she needs the most support in her body positions. Like that, it just made sense to me that I would be in the birth room with these moms that I was working with every single week. And so that's what I started offering. I offered every single mom that walked into our doors the ability for me to be at their labor and birth. Knowing that not everybody would take up the opportunity, but hoping that I would start to gain some more birth in the room birth experience, while also hopefully supporting these moms with support that they would have never received if I hadn't been there in the room, which was through positioning, posturing, and physical movement. So, crazy enough, these women started calling me to their births. They were like, yeah, come on to my birth. I'm in labor. Will you come to my birth? And crazy enough, it almost never affected my work schedule. I think there was one shift that I missed because I was gone for the whole birth, and then one shift where I showed up late because I was at a C-section the morning of, which I'm so grateful for Dr. Travis and my team for supporting me to have these experiences so that I could support our patients in and outside of the office with or without their help. Like they were picking up patients for me while also taking care of their own, while also making sure I was okay and felt supported in the birth space. So super grateful for the team that I've always been able to work with at Move. But also grateful for all these moms that started calling me, giving me these opportunities to be at their birth and support them in a way that they might not have gotten otherwise. Eventually, I felt like I had been to enough births that there was some pieces of information in hospital rooms where I felt like I was just lagging just a little bit before I could understand what was happening in the room, that I wanted just a little bit more information on. And from my understanding, that was everything that you would learn in a typical doula course. So started looking into doula certifications. I actually happened to I'm just so excited to do this episode. You just hear me rambling and mismatching all my words. Earlier in the year, at whatever point this was, I had hosted a workshop for all of the Move moms, which included a movement portion, a portion where they had a speech or a little talk from midwives. They had a little talk from a doula, and the doula that I had originally had planned day of got super sick and did not want to be around pregnant moms with the sickness. So she sent in a backup. This backup doula came in, Miss Haley McNabb, if you'd like to look her up. She's Soul Baby Birthing here in Colorado. She came in, she stepped in, and she was incredible. Absolutely amazing, incredible. I'm pretty sure 10 of the 15 moms that were in the room at the event asked her if she was available for their birth at the event. But anyways, I still had her connection. She's so awesome. I reached out to her around this time and I was like, hey, super curious, where'd you get your doula certification? Where should I be looking to get my doula certification? I see there's a couple options, wondering what's best. And she was like, hey, let's jump on a call. Let's talk about this a little bit. Let's see what you're thinking. So we jumped on a FaceTime or a Zoom or something. We jumped on a call and I shared my intentions, what I was experiencing, all of that I've been in all these birth rooms and I felt like I knew what I was doing, but I was just missing bits and pieces of information that I really wanted to feel confident and have in my belt going into any labor or birth. And she was like, that is so awesome. You sound like you're in the right place. It sounds like you're ready for this work. Let me be honest with you. There are 6 nationally recognized doula certifications in the USA. between us and in this podcast, I'm getting more comfortable with sharing like my true opinions and true perspectives, whether they're controversial or not, because this information is important. I know that the way that I process and know information and the education that I have, I feel really confident in it, and I feel confident in any debate that I would be faced in. So I'm just going to be more open and honest this year in 2026 on this podcast where my true feelings are. Yes, I always respect every birth decision, every birth choice is your right. 100%. I feel like I have knowledge and information that can best support those decisions, whether you make a decision I would make or not. I feel it's important that you have the information. Whether you agree with my information, whether you agree with what I would do or not, it's important that we both have the same information so that we can all make our own decisions and what's best for our bodies. So with that, I'm going to be more open and honest about what I'm sharing. And I hope that that is taken in the way that I truly mean it. And that's never with any disrespect. It is always with honesty. And it's just facts. My mom, we always make this joke. My mom she's very blunt, and she just tells you how it is. And sometimes you might take that as like, oh, that was mean. And it's never mean. She'll tell you, that wasn't mean. It's just facts. So that's what I'm going into 2026 with. Part of this podcast is I just want to share more facts, whether that's controversial or not to you, whether you agree with it or not, it's facts. And I want to start sharing more and more truth behind the opinions that I have, and sharing more opinions behind the facts and truth that I have. Anyways, rewinding. I was talking to Haley. She's like, okay, these doula certifications, they're awesome. They are super, super awesome. However, these 6 doula certifications are being standardized in a way where they are teaching doulas to teach parents that they're supporting, or parents that hire them. They're teaching the parents how to advocate for themselves. Without even being in a doula course, I know and fully believe, and it is maybe not know, this one's a full opinion. It's my opinion that the doula is the advocate. That is the whole purpose of having a doula in the room. She is your advocate. Most of the time I've never met a male doula. Please correct me. If you're a male doula, or if you've ever met a male doula, I would like to meet him. Parents should never have to advocate for themselves if they have a doula in the room. So I didn't want to go through those courses. I wanted to be in a course that was empowering me to advocate for the parents. And funny enough, she was actually going to start offering a local doula certification. So her and Miss Jessica Fawcett, she's a prenatal yoga teacher, doula. They started this amazing new doula training called Beheld Doula Trainings. I will try to link it in the show notes so that if you're curious of becoming a doula, they do these trainings a couple times a year. They are so incredible. It's such an intimate learning experience. It's so grounding and so it's just beautiful. So beautiful, way more than I ever expected to receive or experience in a doula certification. And now I feel like I show up in the birth room 500%. I feel so confident when I show up in the birth room, even with all the unknowns and things that I still haven't experienced. I feel so much more confident with not just a doula certification under my belt, but actually having this experience with these 2 women at their doula certification and all the women that were in the doula certification with me. I feel so confident stepping into my role as a doula in the birth room. And I really feel like that has showed, at least for obviously the parents who experienced me in the birth room probably wouldn't know the difference, but I feel the difference. I feel the difference walking into the room. I feel the difference. My Oura ring can tell the difference. It tells me I'm much more regulated and much more stable throughout these labors and births. And yeah, I feel so blessed and so grateful for all the experience I've already had at such a young age. And I can't wait for more. I don't have any kids right now, so I feel like I want to utilize this time. I get last night I think I slept for 12 hours. The night before I think I slept for another 12 hours. Like if I have all this time in my life, I want to utilize it to get this experience that I'm going to probably want to turn down later in my life when I do have kids. Which, speaking of, yes, Dr. Emily does not have kids. Isn't that crazy? A lot of people ask me, like, first appointment that they have with me, do you have kids? Or usually within the first couple of appointments that they have with me, they ask if I have kids. No, I do not have kids. Do I want kids? 100%. Do I not seem like I want kids? I definitely want kids. I don't know how many kids I want. I don't know what I want. I just know that I want to experience motherhood. And I've been so inspired by every single mom that walks into my office, or that I've been at her birth with, or that I've experienced her in motherhood. I want to do that. So yes, it's on the bucket list, everybody. It's on the list of things to do, but we're not there yet. And that's something I wanted to touch on because I could see why it would be difficult to receive information from somebody who hasn't experienced what you're about to experience. I get that. I think that could be, I try to think about experience, like I try to put myself in that perspective a lot of time. Like if I was about to do something and this person hadn't done it, but they're telling me how to do it, would I trust them? I don't know. But we're all human. We're all just showing up in the world as who we are. And I've worked really hard to show up with confidence in what I do know and find the twinkles of Dr. Emily. So not that I'm here to sell myself, but I'll tell you what I feel like, because I know other new doulas listen to this podcast. I know that prenatal or up and coming prenatal chiropractors are probably listening to this podcast who don't have kids, and doulas who don't have kids who are showing up in birth spaces to help support bringing babies into this world. How are we showing up in these spaces where we may not have the experience that certain people are looking for? And that's okay. Let me start with that. It's okay. It's okay. A lot of people are doing things for the first time without any experience. A lot of moms who are going into labor and birth have never been inside a labor or birth, seen anybody else give labor or birth. How I show up as somebody who has not had kids, but constantly giving advice and guiding people who are having babies and kids. How do I do it? I like to keep at the top of my mind this really cool piece that I feel like other birth practitioners don't have that do have kids. It's not a comparison game, but it does help me to feel a little bit more confident in who I am. So like my mom's had a baby. She's not a birth practitioner, but a lot of birth practitioners have had babies. They have their own opinion possibly of what you might be experiencing, what something might feel like, because they have already felt that, because they have been through their own version of that phase of labor and birth or pregnancy or postpartum or early motherhood. I haven't been through any of that. And so I feel like I have a very clean slate of opinions. There's really not a ton of opinion that comes through. It's a lot of fact. I'm really good at sharing facts and seeing things for what they are. You might have some birth practitioners who are like, okay, you should expect this and this and this might happen and this might happen. And all of those ifs, ands, or buts might only be being verbalized to you because this practitioner thinks that you are similar to them or completely opposite of them, and they think you're going to experience what they experienced or what they didn't experience because they've already had a baby. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. When we have already experienced something, there's a little bit of our experience that can go into how we show up. Which therapists might agree with me or might disagree with me. I feel like I would not be a great therapist because I would show up probably with some of my own baggage and be like, I think you should think about it this way. But with labor and birth, I haven't had a baby. I just know the facts of what can, what the possibilities are, what could happen, what might happen. And so I feel like I show up in a birth space with a lot more possibility, with a lot more imagination, with a lot more room for experience and room for possibilities. Where I feel like other practitioners who may have possibly had babies, who may have possibly had their own experience, might show up in a space where it's a little closed off because they know that that isn't possible. I'm not saying this is any specific practitioner, but if I were to, this is just how I am able to show up more confident and beef up my own shoulders of like, Emily, you've got this, even though you haven't had kids. This is how I show up in space. Let's say a mom wanted to have an unmedicated birth, and this mom happens to be a labor and delivery nurse who last year wanted to have an all-natural, no medication, vaginal birth. And somewhere in her labor and birth story, she received, whether she asked for it or didn't ask for it, she received medication and she ended up having this baby. She might show up into a birth space, which I'm not saying she will. I don't know who this woman is. This is a made up person. This could even be a doula. Shows up into a birth space with a mom who now wants an all-natural, unmedicated vaginal birth and might have a small, even if it's just 1%, little voice in their head of like, might not happen. Remember when you thought you could do it natural? If you couldn't do natural, this lady who's already screaming, there's no way she's going to be able to do it. Sometimes I feel like that can show up in so many different aspects of life. Small experiences affect all of our experiences for most of life. So right now, as a single lady with no kiddos, I hold on to the fact that I see this huge realm of possibility in labor and birth. I know what can happen. I know what could happen. I see possibilities of all these things that women want without any clouded judgment of my own experience. And there are doulas who show up in that same exact way who have kids. So I don't want to say that it's just doulas without kids who show up that way, because I do feel like there are plenty of doulas who have this amazing ability to drop any of their own experience and show up fresh and awesome. However, that's how I don't have the opportunity to step in with experience as a mother. So I get to show up always in that realm of possibility, of facts, of knowledge, of what could happen. What I like to always put out what the possibilities are, because I think a lot of people think that some things just aren't possible when there are so many different possibilities in labor and birth. And so, yeah, I'll stick with that word. I think showing up as a young doula, or rather a young female who doesn't have kids, but showing up in the birth space and labor space and pregnancy space and motherhood space. How are we showing up? If you need some support, if you are in a similar boat as me, or I don't know, if you think you're about to be in a similar boat as me, if you want to start diving into the doula world and you're not sure about having the experience or not having the experience, I hope that you can see that we all show up with extremely unique treasures and extremely unique skills and tools. And for me, one of my tools is the realm of possibilities, is keeping that door open to the realm of possibilities. I had one mom come in who told me she wanted to have an orgasmic birth. This is not the first time I've heard this, but specifically this one mom who had come in and told me that she wanted to have an orgasmic birth. I was telling that to other practitioners or other friends, like, what do you think about this phrase? I want an orgasmic birth. And I had peers who were like, not possible. Not even gonna happen. Like, can you imagine? Like, not a chance. All people who already had kids. I told this mom every single week, I believe you can have an orgasmic birth. I believe in you. You are doing everything in your power to have the birth that you want to have. You've got this. You're going to do it. I kept injecting her with positivity and affirmation, because I felt like it was within the realm of possibility that she could have an orgasmic birth. And guess what? She did. At home, all natural, in the tub, an over 9-pound baby. I feel like sometimes when you can step in to a space with a different, unique treasure. And for me, for her, it was that. It was stepping in with this realm of possibility. That can happen. You've got this. I kept encouraging her, and I'm sure, honestly, without me, she probably would have been able to do it too. I just like to believe that I was also part of the help. Everybody loves to believe that they were a piece of the puzzle. But yeah, I think that just emulates just one little aspect of how I think we can show up in pregnant moms' lives, even though I wasn't even at her birth. I was just her chiropractor every single week. I hope that helps anybody who's in the new phases of birth world, whether you're doula, midwife, OB, labor and delivery nurse. I know tons of labor and delivery nurses that don't have any babies. I never see them shake when they're in the birth room. They're so confident. They are so strong. They use phrases and words that they've been trained to use, but sometimes they have their own that they've seen and they don't have kids. So I wanted to use this portion of the podcast to, one, help anybody who's in the same position, two, shine a light on people like me, for our moms and our pregnant mamas in the community who are questioning, like, do I want to go with a younger practitioner? Do I want to go with a younger XYZ, or do I want the more experienced? There's pros and cons to everything that you choose in life. Every single thing has a consequence. Every single thing has a pro, a benefit. So just know, some of your pros with some of your younger practitioners is our realm of possibility, our belief in your ability to do the unseen, the unknown, the unheard. Whereas some of our more wise, more experienced practitioners have seen some of the more consistent things, or have seen one thing just too many times and they know it's going to go this way, or whatever it is. So pros and cons to everything. All of my education, all of who I am, who I show up as a person, I think has just added up on top of each other over life. So I grew up as a dancer in competitive dance, 40 hours a week on top of regular school. 6th through 12th grade, I went to Denver School of the Arts as a dance major. So I would do school, I would dance at school for 2 hours. I would go to my studio, my private studio after school, and I would dance for another 4 to 6 to 7 hours that night. I'd go home, do my homework, go to bed, start over the next day. I did this until I was 18. I knew growing up that I was not going to be a professional dancer. I knew at 18 I was going to be done dancing. I was going to be done taking classes, whatever it was. But I was going to move on to becoming a health professional, becoming some sort of health professional. And at that point, it was nurse. At some point, I'd overcome that pediatrician idea. I wanted to be a pediatrician, and then I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse who did baths for babies, which, come to find out, there's no one labor and delivery nurse who just does baths for babies. So if you're wanting to do that, shift your expectations. I went to college. I went to the University of Oklahoma, and for the first 3.5 years, I majored in pre-nursing, which basically isn't a major. You just do classes and hope that you get into nursing school. My nursing plans had changed. Like, I was just going to do nursing school at a different school after I graduated. Shifted my major to health and exercise science. I was in health and exercise science, pre-nursing, long title, but I was taking all my classes. Halfway through sophomore year, something just clicked. Something in school and college just clicked, and I could not miss. I was crushing every single test, every single quiz. I was getting straight A's. Like, I would be shocked if I got a 99 on a test. Like, I knew every single answer going into every single test. I don't know what clicked or what switched, but I just knew how to study, and I figured it out. So I started cruising through school about sophomore year. I get to senior year. I'm still planning on going to nursing school. And around that start of last semester, I realized that a lot of my friends in Oklahoma were going to go back to Texas. They were either going to do graduate school in Texas or go work in Texas. And I did not have that plan, but I did have family in Texas. And I was like, I could go to Texas. I like Texas. I know Texas. I love Texas, but I need a reason to go to Texas. And I knew my parents were not were not super down for another 4 years or 2 years, whatever nursing program I could find, for out of state tuition. So, and we split tuition between us. So I knew it was gonna have to be like there had to be a reason I needed to go to Texas. And it just dawned on me in the middle of a class, my first week of senior semester 2. It dawned on me that my sorority big sister, she was in chiropractic school in Texas, and I love chiropractic. I go to the chiropractor. I could be a chiropractor. I was like, I believe in chiropractic. I love this. Like, oh, okay, let me just look at it. So I pulled up on my school laptop Parker University, because that's the school she went to. I looked up the prerequisites. I was pretty sure I had everything. I wasn't super sure, but it seemed like I had everything that I would have needed. So I sent her a message. I was like, hey, don't get too excited, but I am a little curious about chiropractic school. And within 30 minutes, she had her advisor sent me an application waiver. So I applied for free. And 2 weeks later, I got into the school with a scholarship. I was like, sweet, this was the next step. This was like the most clear green light experience I've ever had. Like green light. I got to live with my best friend, Maddie, in Texas for 3 years. And in those 3 years, COVID happened. COVID happened. And Lordy Lord, becoming a chiropractor during COVID is quite the experience, especially when your job is to touch people and make contact with people. So it was really interesting experience for a while. So they'd shifted rules at school, which hopefully no one from Parker University is listening to this, but if you are, peace out. Anyways, if you were one of my peers, you were probably with me in the shenanigans. But during COVID, they don't let you touch a ton of people. We were wearing masks. We were wearing gloves. I could barely feel what I was supposed to be doing. It was horrendous. And so a lot of exploring and learning just how to even articulate a nervous system in a body that's sitting in front of you and how to decide how to take care of it at its best. That takes a lot of hands-on experience and in safe guidance surroundings and environment. So we did a lot of out-of-school work, and I went to a lot of different offices to learn from different chiropractors, just to watch them practice, because I wasn't getting it in school because of COVID. So again, there was a lot of outside of school seminars that you could go to for the weekend and learn different adjusting techniques. Well, they all cost money. Well, I was already paying for out-of-state tuition. I was already in grad school. I'm like maxing out student loans at this point. So I started making these face cloths, and I was just cruising on these face cloths, and I would make batches, and I would tell myself, if I can sell this batch of face cloths, like I can go to 1, 2, 3, 4 more seminars, whatever it is. And that was just like my first couple of semesters there, until I realized if I kept working closely with some of these doctors, when they would host their own seminar, they would ask me to be their representative, their student representative. And so I would have other students sign up. I would go out and be like, hey, you should really come to this seminar. Hey, I really think you'd like this doctor. I would try to find people who would match with the doctor well to sign up for the seminar. And then I would get to go for free. So I was trying to work the system the best that I could so I could just get as much experience as quick as possible in this short 3.5 years that you have in chiropractic school. On top of that, I wanted to get more and more hands-on people, and the way that you do that is through mission trips. So these chiropractic mission trips are such a toss-up again during COVID times. Like, should we be traveling out of the country? Should we what shouldn't we do? Again, I don't really know the perfect answer. I am super grateful for the experience that I had because I think that it made me who I am as a chiropractor. And with that, I tried my best to respect everybody's wishes, everybody's health, everybody's life experience in our health or illness world. So with that, I did go on these mission trips. These mission trips range from 5 to 10 days. My first one was 10 days long. My next two were 5 and 6 days long, I believe. First one was in Haiti. Next two were in Mexico. When you go on these mission trips, you can adjust upwards of 200 people a day. It's insane. In Haiti, there will be a crowd just around each chiropractic table. And the second they start to see the rhythm of which you adjust, and like you kind of just start going through a very quick rhythm of adjusting because there's so many people. It doesn't even feel like it feels disrespectful if you take your time because there's so many people to get to. You need to be able to get to all these people, so you're cooking through these adjustments as quick as possible. So people start to get into your rhythm. They start to see what they need to do when they lay on your table. So the second I would finish a cervical adjustment and tap, so I would, if you can visualize me adjusting, I would adjust the right or the left side of the neck. I would adjust the other side. As soon as I felt it was good, I would take my hands out and I would tap the sides of their shoulders because I'm standing above their head. I would tap their shoulders once or twice and they would sit up and get off, and the next person would lay face down within 4 seconds. Like, it was the quickest turnaround, and you are just doing this for hours. It's one of the coolest experiences as a student because you have to get good quick. And a lot of these body types on these mission trips are the same. So when you go to Haiti, the body type is very similar person to person. Mexico, it's very different than Haiti, but it's the same body type person to person. And so you just start to experience these different body types, very consistent symptom complaints. So like the symptom complaints in Haiti, all the same, but completely different than the ones in Mexico. In Mexico, it was always neck, shoulder, neck, shoulder, neck, shoulder. In Haiti, it's always low back, knees. Why? For maybe their different daily cultural practices. I don't know. But anyways, you get through these mission trips where you've adjusted like one mission trip I felt like I left and I adjusted felt like 200 to 300 people. A different mission trip I left, it felt like I adjusted like 1,500 people in the week, which is just a lot of people for one body, one system. And then also at school, we have clubs. There's a lot of different clubs. Sometimes you're just like a one club person. Naturally, I wanted to be in all the clubs. So like my first trimester, I think I went to every single club every single week for the first 5 weeks, and then I started to narrow it down to what I really liked. But at the end of the day, I was going to 3 or 4 adjusting specific clubs, and then I was also going to a network spinal adjusting club, which is a completely different adjusting technique. I would say it's a different nervous system regulating technique. Lots of fun education there. I graduate. I come out of school. I started doing a lot of business education with Dr. Travis because originally I was going to open my own practice. And so I was doing a lot of business education. And then actually I was supporting him through filming and doing a lot of photography work through Move and through his seminar program for other chiropractic students. So I was just getting a lot of business education through that. And that was kind of where I was filling my education bucket until the pregnant moms started happening at Move. Then the pregnant moms started happening at Move. And I was like, okay, I need more information. So I started off with Dr. Molly Peralta. I've shared her so many times on this podcast. She has her own practice that she opened, I think closed for a little bit during her pregnancy. It might be back open, but it's called Living Adjusted in Maui, Hawaii. She is one of the hosts or hosts the podcast called The Village Sessions, also in Maui, Hawaii. Such a cool podcast. Such a cool podcast. That's like my dream, is one day to have some of them on this podcast, whether it's via Zoom or if I could somehow get myself to Hawaii. Like, I would love to meet these women, and I really think that the rest of my followers or anybody that's listening to this deserves to meet them too, because they're just so incredible. But I learned a lot of information, not just about adjusting, but about pregnancy in general from Molly, and I continue to do so. She always updates her course, which is so cool because I'm constantly learning from her course. I did the Webster technique in Ohio, Nebraska. Wait, Ohio? Omaha, Nebraska. Apparently, I don't know my cities and states. Super great. The teacher that I had there, she was awesome. Most incredible Webster technique weekend I thought I ever had. And turned out on the last hour of her seminar, she went on to tell us, how confident do you all feel in the information I gave you this weekend? We're all like, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It was great. She was like, great. How many of you do not have kids right now? I was like, me. She said, okay, I've never had a baby. I have a child, but I've never given birth. I've never been pregnant. I never delivered a child. And I had chills go down my body. I felt so validated. I felt so seen. I was like, oh my gosh. The way that this woman just showed up to teach us all weekend about how to take care of pregnant moms, I would have never known that she did not have her own kids. And that's not the goal. I'm not trying to get people to think that I have kids by any means in my office, but I want you to feel so confident in how I show up in your space, whether it's at the adjusting table or in your birth and labor space, that you don't think twice about whether I do or do not have kids. That's not and shouldn't be the purpose or what is going through moms' heads. We should all be getting to focus on mom herself. So that was one piece of cool education that I felt like really allowed me to set off and feel really excited to start taking care of moms without fear of how I would be perceived. I've gone on to more education. I did my doula certification with Beheld Doula training with Haley and Jess. I continue to do ICPA certifications. So this past year, I went to 5 different ICPA classes, both online and in person. Some are adjusting techniques. Some are just purely like helping mom latch for breastfeeding through posture and positioning. Yeah, crazy enough. If you're not latching well, you might see a lactation consultant and not have any results. Not to say that you wouldn't, because I know amazing lactation results. But then you might also come to the chiropractor, where the chiropractor can show you a proper position or posturing for your baby in your body, and you might actually find much more effect or impact or success with breastfeeding. Okay, last, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say in this episode before I close it out. But some of my favorite moments from this past year, again, this podcast was not for the views. It's not for, it is, but it isn't. It's for everybody to get this information, but I'm not doing this so that I feel like I have 1 million followers or so that I have XYZ. I would love more people to follow this so that they get more information. I think the more, like, naturally, if you look at how marketing and SEOs work on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Music, the more subscribers I have, the more comments, the more likes, the more views that I have, the more that my podcast just naturally will show up in random people's feeds as a recommendation. So I really do appreciate when you utilize any of those features, liking, commenting, leaving a review. Hopefully this first month or the first couple months, I'm going to do a little prize giveaway. Depending on who does some of these things, it'll be like a little popped bingo card, whether it's following our Instagram page or leaving a review or listening to your favorite podcast or your favorite episode and putting it on your story or whatever. We will do a giveaway for our first popped merchandise, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be so fun. But all that to say, follow, don't follow, please follow. You might get a chance to win something in the future. The more followers that we get, the higher chance we can have more people watch this podcast. So even though it doesn't matter, it is super helpful. It's not my intention, but it's super helpful for the intentions of this podcast to be shared with more people. So please like, subscribe, follow, do all the fun stuff, because we're going to have fun stuff coming up soon where you can win Popped merchandise. It's going to be awesome. Now I remember where this came from. It's not about the followers, but some of my favorite moments about this podcast are the episodes that just get, like, in my opinion, for having 0 followers walking into this and now having a strong 41 subscribers. I expect like 2 views on my podcast. Like, I don't know who's watching these. I'm not promoting them very well. I'm working on that. Again, it's a one-woman show. We have lots of goals going into 2026 with some more support, just so that I can just so that more people can hear this information. Again, that's the purpose of this podcast, is to share information so that we can all be more educated on the birth, pregnancy, parenthood, motherhood, everything world. Some of my most random podcast topics, like ones where I was like, I don't know what to talk about this week, and I'm not feeling super passionate about any topic, but this is kind of interesting, are podcasts that would do the best. I would have the most views. So, for example, the car seat meltdown episode. How is that my best viewed podcast? The least planned. I think I was stressed about the outfit that I wore for that podcast because I didn't plan it very well. Like, it was such a short episode. I was like, man, people just want short episodes now. They don't want to hear me talk all day long. So stuff like that. Like, that's a favorite moment for me, because I'm like, look, even when it was a good lesson for me. Even when I'm not super passionate about that specific topic, I'm kind of curious about it. I know other people want to hear about it. Look at how important that topic was for so many people. That was the podcast that they listened to out of all the different topics that I have on there. They wanted to listen to car seat meltdowns. So that was just a good aha moment of like, hey, no topic is too little of a topic. Every topic has its space, and will hold a place somewhere on your page for somebody one day. So that was a cool favorite moment. Another favorite moment was moving into this space, because I felt like it was a challenge. It felt like it was being handed to me on a silver platter. Like, here's a perfect podcast space for you in your new apartment. It's going to be awesome. And at the same time, it has been the most difficult space to decorate, to bring together for the podcast. And I think it's simply because the garage had so much space. I was on this, like, you guys, where I was filming the podcast, on the left side of the screen was my brother's truck. Like, that garage was so big. We just had like an extra huge breezeway garage is what they called it. And there's just not specifically as much depth in this room, but like the walls were already painted and there's light in the corner, but I have my lighting panels. And how are the seats going to work with 2? Like, it was so different, and it wasn't dark, and it wasn't my original popped. I can't paint this wall. Like, I can't put popped on the wall. So it felt like a challenge to make a new space feel comfortable enough for me to just sit and talk in. But also something that I felt like was aesthetically pleasing to look at on the camera. So I only watch podcasts on YouTube. For the past 2 or 3 years, that is the only way that I have consumed podcasts. And my favorite podcast to watch, even though they didn't have like their ultimate studio until this past year, was What We Said by Chelsea and JC Marie Smith. Love the girls. What We Said is so fun. I would not say brain rot, but I would say it is a brain escape for me to listen to their podcast. I usually listen to it on my walks, or I just set up my iPhone while I do things around my house and I watch their podcasts, even if I'm not watching every second of it. So when I made my podcast, I knew for a fact I wanted the filming aspect because I love watching people talk and I love watching how they use their hands. And if you notice, I'm a big hand user, so I wanted to have that opportunity. At the same time, I am me and I am very, I like things all the way done. I want it 100% completed. I don't like it halfway done. Like, I want to go balls to the walls. When I do something, I do something. I started needle pointing recently. Everybody tells you just need a canvas, a needle, and a thread. No. I have many canvases. I have all the thread you could think of. I have every tool. I have thread. I have a needle minder. I have the thread puller. I have every needle you could think of. Like, I have it all because I want to do the project 100%. I want everything that I need. I want to feel comfortable doing it and not be like, I need XYZ. So that's how I started this podcast. Everybody just told me, you just need a mic. You just need a mic. I wanted the whole thing. I wanted a chair. I wanted the lighting. I wanted the visuals. I wanted it to look like a professional podcast from podcast number 1. And I really feel proud of myself for accomplishing that. If you listen to the Relaxin' episode today, you'll hear me talk about how I had to take a couple weeks off and actually make this space feel better, which you might notice it's not like hugely different, but I have this little collage going on up here. Like, I have this side table. It just feels better to me. The feng shui in here, the look on the camera, the look on the actual video itself, like, it just looks and feels better to me. And that's who I am. I wanted it to look and feel exactly how it's going to be for the future podcast. So this podcast space has changed a lot. I really appreciate and I'm so grateful for all of the people that have put in any amount of effort or opinion into helping me decide what's going to look best and feel best and come across best for this podcast. So I hope that comes across. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk about. This is such a journey in life, and I'm sure if you're a mother and you're watching this or you're about to be a mom, you can relate in completely different ways. Like, there are just some things you want to be fully set up for. There are some moms that I know that they have everything they could ever imagine when their baby comes. Like, they already have that in the nursery. They're ready to go. And that's just how they show up best as a mom. And there are other moms that are like, I really want to just see how it goes. And that's how they show up best as a mom. We all show up best as different people. This is how I show up best as myself, is with my heart open, all my passion out here. Yeah. And now I show up with a lot more comfort and stability in this chair. If you notice, I'm super comfortable now by the end of this podcast, but the first 4 or 5 episodes that I put out there, my heart rate was above 100 beats per minute the entire episode. You could probably hear it in my voice, like I'm just breathing a little bit heavier because I was just so excited and nervous at the same time. And now I feel like that excitement is a steady rumble that sits in my belly throughout the episodes, but I love it, and I am so grateful for this, and it's hard for me sometimes to say I'm proud of myself because I like to come across humble, and I like to be perceived as a humble and strong, stable, modest human, but I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really proud of putting myself out there and for how uncomfortable some of this is, just sitting and talking by yourself in the middle of an apartment, knowing that, in my garage, it was in the garage, so I could hear people outside. I knew that they could hear me talking into the mic about whatever I was talking about via the podcast. So, there's parts of this where I just feel like I get to show up more confident, and I'm super proud of myself of putting in the work, staying somewhat consistent until those last couple months, but also honoring the space where I didn't have the passion that was going to produce an episode that I would have been proud to put out there. So I'm glad that I was able to listen to myself, but also push myself and challenge myself to create 2 different podcast space in 1 year, put out over 30 episodes in under a year, with actual equipment and with actual views and on more than one platform. So I'm just really proud of myself and give myself a pat on the back. But I also want to give anybody who's listening a big hug. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast in any way that you have. Whether you are a silent listener, whether you've only listened to 1 episode, whether this is your first episode, the last episode you're going to listen to, whatever it is, I am so appreciative of your support in any way, because that was never the intention of this podcast. It was just for me. So the fact that anybody else is finding any joy or education or validation through this is beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And I did not think I was going to cry on this episode. So let me reel it back. Because again, there are some weird things about podcasting by yourself. You just start crying by yourself. I am so grateful to impact any life. Even if it's just one. If it's nobody, that's okay too. I'm super proud of what I was able to do for myself in this podcast and for moms. And that's enough. That to me is enough. But man, it is so cool to know that there are women and there are babies' lives that are changed and altered because of information that I was able to share or an impact that I was able to have on a family. So how cool. What a cool space to be in. And yeah, let me take a second to collect myself. Don't know if I'm going to include that part in the episode where I'm actively crying, but all that to say, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting this podcast. I cannot believe that I get to do this. I can't believe that I'm still doing this. I can't wait to see what else comes out of this podcast this year. So thank you for your support. If you know anybody who would enjoy this, a pregnant mama, a postpartum mama, if there's one episode that you think somebody would gain some information out of, please share it, because this information is for everybody. And that's why I'm putting it out there. It's not to be gatekept. It's so that women can feel confident and comfortable walking into motherhood and not feeling shame or guilt or feeling inexperienced. There's plenty of that to go around for other aspects of our life. So I really hope that if you find any bit of empowerment in this podcast, that you're able to share that with somebody else, or to keep siphoning off some more empowerment and validation every week where you can. I'm so grateful to be that place for you. Hopefully that's the end of my emotions for today. And for this podcast, I never ever thought that I'd shed a tear on the podcast. And if I cut it out, sorry, I cut it out. Sometimes I don't like the way that I look when I cry on camera. So, I hope that this podcast is even a hair or a sliver for you, what it is to me, because I love it. I love it so much. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a review, whatever feels good to you. Stay tuned, because we are back in 2026 with consistent Monday episodes. We might have some bonus episodes like this one popping out on some Mondays, possibly some Fridays, as we start getting some of these interviews underway. But again, please, if you have any ideas, questions, comments, things that you want to talk about in pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, beyond, please let me know, because it helps give us more things to talk about in this podcast. There's plenty of topics. There's an infinite amount of topics in this realm. So if there's something specifically that you want to hear about, let me know so that we can talk about it soon. I hope that you guys have a beautiful week, an incredible 2026. I hope that if you're asking for baby dust, you get all the baby dust shed on you this year. I hope that if you are looking forward to the next stage of motherhood, that stage welcomes you with open arms. And I hope that if you're closing chapters of other stuff, that it gets closed really nice and strong and tight so you can walk into these other chapters with nice open arms yourself. Whatever it is, I hope that your year is full of abundance and love and opportunity and adventure and popped. I hope that your year is full of popped, because I know mine will be. I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you for listening so much. I'm Dr. Emily, and you've been listening to the Popped Podcast.